Welcome to Make Today Count, your 20 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host Ross Dean, and each episode I chat to thought leaders, influencers and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go that extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them, powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to episode 7 of Make Today Count. And today we are joined by the amazing Kayleigh Norris. 9 years ago, Kayleigh was diagnosed with a rare type of cancer, and since then has been on a mission to change her life so that she can thrive and live her most happiest and healthiest self. Kayleigh believes that we're all here to be of service to the world and share our gifts in our own unique way. Through this, Kayleigh loves to help others understand this is possible and inspires them to create a simple but effective habits which can change the way they think and feel about themselves. And this is why her blog, livinghealthybeatingcancer.com, was born. On her blog and through Instagram, Kayleigh shares her story and tips on how to live her best life. Kayleigh, welcome to Make Today Count. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me, Ross. Brilliant.
No, you're more than welcome. You know, this is something I've been really looking forward to, having this conversation. I've been trying to think back, because I think it was a couple of months ago that I came across your Instagram by way of a friend, maybe someone that we've had on the podcast before, kind of shared something. And it really kind of intrigued me to. I think it was the type of things that you were speaking about really resonated with what we do here. So I wanted to learn more. And when I got more deeper into your story, it was just so inspirational. And I just felt that everything that you were kind of sharing was really in tune with what, you know, I believe in, and all the people we have on the show sort of believe in too. But I'll do a really rubbish job of telling your story, and I want you to do that yourself. So would you just, if people listening haven't come past your Instagram or your blog, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got to creating the blog today?
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to keep it a little bit shorter, otherwise this story could take forever to tell. But I started probably about 10, 11 years ago now. I started to get a lot of pain in my ankle, and I went to the doctors and they put it down to growing pains. They took an x-ray, but they said that there was nothing wrong with it. So I kind of just went with it. And then about another 2 years later, the pain started to get worse. It was traveling up my leg. And I went back to the doctors, and they found that there was some discolouring in the bones. And after some more investigations, I had to go through a couple of operations and some biopsies, and they found that it was a rare type of cancer. For short, angiosarcoma. The name is very long, and I can't actually pronounce it myself. So but yeah, and at this time, so I went through getting a diagnosis. I'm under a hospital in London now, and they are fantastic. And I've had radiotherapy as well, which helped a lot with the pain. And the thing that I found kind of really helped the most is gaining knowledge on cancer, because we've all heard of the word cancer, but we don't really necessarily know what it means, and there's different types of cancers out there, and it's quite deep. But really, the research that I was doing kind of came back to it's what we're consuming in our bodies. So it's our food, and also what we're consuming through our minds as well, and helping to be at peace with the body, which can really, really help people either live with cancer or go through remission. It's a big goal there. And there's an incredible book called Mom's Not Having Chemo, and it's a book that I picked up and read, and it just really inspired me to start living the way I do now. So that's a really long story cut short.
And I think, as you say, you know, a lot of us can probably relate in some ways, because they either know someone that's been diagnosed with cancer or someone that's lived with cancer in the past. I guess at that age you were a young woman, probably I think you we sort of around going into sort of later education, that kind of time, probably, was it around that time?
Yeah, so well, I was around 21, and
Mm.
I actually wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my life, and I ended up going back to university at 23, um,
Yeah.
which was a bit of a challenge within itself, because I know I've spoken to you before that I do also have learning difficulties, and I think that's a big
Mm.
part of my journey as well.
Yeah.
Because I found education really, really difficult, and then with having to kind of juggle of living with cancer with that as well.
Mm.
Doing the degree, you can quite imagine it was quite hard. But there was a lot of support at university, which enabled me to go through, get my degree, which I absolutely loved. And it now helps me to help other people as well. So I studied special educational needs and disability studies. And I think that's just really
Mm.
important to mention that even if you do have learning difficulties, try break down those barriers, because it's definitely nothing to do with intelligence. Some of the most intelligent people in the world have learning difficulties, but I know
Mm.
that it is quite difficult sometimes. So I was kind of juggling both of them at the same time.
Yeah, I mean that's something really interesting. We have experience of that at home ourselves. My son is autistic,
Yeah.
and he'll become up to 6. And it's one of those things that especially as a parent as well. Sometimes you sort of think you sort of look to the future and say, what does this hold? And we've learned over time that you just kind of you sort of narrow your focus and take each sort of kind of step as it goes. And that's been really important and really helpful for us in kind of doing that. And I think that's the case in a lot of circumstances. People going into university and with learning difficulties, there's no reason today. I think we live in the best times for, fortunately for support and all these other things. And you, as you say, that was your experience of university yourself.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. I think knowledge is power, and
That's right.
when you find out more about sort of the whatever you call label condition, sort of quote unquote,
Mm.
when you find out more about it, you kind of enable yourself to work with it, and rather than it being your main identity, it just becomes part of your identity, and you're able to understand yourself more, have more self awareness. And when you have that, life just becomes much more of an easy flow to it.
Yeah.
Rather than pushing against it, you kind of accept it, and you think, okay, cool, but I can still do okay with this.
Yeah, and in exactly that. One of the things that I've noticed from having guests on this show, for people that are doing amazing work, is that all this has come from some kind of challenge. At one stage in their life, there was a challenge that came along, and they reacted because they needed to, and then something beautiful came off the back of it. And I really kind of feel that this is the case for you as well. You start to look into um, doing the research and all that kind of stuff, and what you've created now in the blog is a really beautiful thing, in that it's now helping others, sort of empower them and to allow them to access information, all this kind of stuff as well. And just kind of sharing that key message about kind of living your best life. It's what we've called the show today. What for you, if you could kind of put it into a few sentences, what does living your best life mean to you, Kayleigh?
Gosh, living my best life. Okay, so we all have this picture of, we see this phrase and we think, oh, that must mean being on a yacht, sailing
Mm.
around, a beautiful Mediterranean island. Which, don't get me wrong, sounds amazing. But I think to me, it's about knowing that we do have routines in everyday life. And some people, it gets called that mundane routine, but actually there's something really beautiful in that. Like, you get to experience every moment. And although every moment might not be exciting, or it might be quite difficult, but these experiences are leading on to the way we shape our lives. And I think it's just about really being appreciative of what we have, and the family units we have around us, and or friendship groups, and just really being grateful and just enjoying those moments, even though you might not be on a yacht sailing around the world, but there's something really beautiful in every moment. And I think it's just taking that and looking at that and being grateful for it.
Absolutely. I can't remember who said it, but someone said that quote, we repeatedly do, so whatever we choose to do on a daily basis kind of forms our daily life, and kind of forms the rest of our lives to an extent. When we're talking about, we're trying our best to live our best life, and I guess there's kind of key foundational elements. Some of them you just touched on from there. A couple that I picked up from there was sort of community and sort of your family and friends. Tell me a little bit about how community has kind of helped you on your kind of journey so far, Kayleigh.
Yeah, community is so important. I think it was Tony Robbins what they said about proximity is power. So the
Mm,
5 people that we surround ourselves with the most is what and
mm,
who we become. So you really want to keep your community quite tight, and it's all about having people who empower you. Now, they're not going to empower you every single day, but just knowing that you have those people there who you can turn to, you can talk to, um, who allow you to be sad when you need to be sad, because that's really important. We can't be happy and shiny all the time. And for me, that's a massive thing. I don't think I could get through this journey. I mean, I'm quite a positive person. I have
yeah.
high resilience, but living with cancer, there's days where I do have a lot of pain, and I have
Mm,
an amazing partner, and parents who help me through that. My friends, and also my work colleagues. They've been very, very respectful, and understanding, and putting adjustments in place. And I think community, as we are humans, we are designed to have that community. Not be alone, and it's something that we really need. And in the blue zones as well, I don't know if you heard of the blue zones at all.
yeah. Is this the areas of the world where they have all these things like community, food, and all that kind of stuff that all kind of comes together to create a long life? Is that what
Yes,
I'm? Is that,
it's the
yeah.
yeah, the centenarians, but long
Yeah.
life, but quality of life with that as well. And
Yeah.
part of that is community, and it's about just, for me, it's so important. It's what makes me laugh. If I need to cry, I can cry. I can
Mm.
release those emotions, but it brings joy. And I think that is, community, something that can bring you joy and empower you, is so important, especially if you're going through a healing journey.
Mm. I think as you say, it's really important. But I'm guessing in a lot of situations where people have challenges, it's something that they kind of neglect sometimes as well. I think from personal experience and different times of my life, when there's been challenges, you sometimes become inward, and maybe you don't initially feel like sort of reaching out to other people. What advice could you kind of give to people if they're kind of feeling a little bit like that, and maybe they feel, I don't know, whether that's kind of shame or any of these other emotions?
Yeah, it's hard, especially if we're thinking about our mental health. We're all on the mental
Mm,
health continuum as we are the physical health. It doesn't mean we all,
mm,
have a diagnosable mental illness, but
yeah,
um, I think when we are feeling low, within ourselves, and if somebody's experiencing a mental illness, that feeling is much harder for them. So reaching out can be quite difficult, and I think it's really about preparing yourself of who you've got around you. Make sure you have people, um, who are caring, who are non-judgmental as well, and if you can, even just have a plan with your friends or family or whoever
mm,
you go to, as and say, this is something I might do when I'm feeling things are a little bit harder, and then they can recognize that, and maybe they can come to you rather than you having to
yeah.
open up your gates themselves, and because that can be very, very challenging to ask for help. I get that.
No, definitely. And kind of following on from that, one of the other things I kind of picked up from what you were saying as well as was gratitude was something that was very important to you. And it's kind of a word that's kind of banded about, I guess, quite a lot these days. But I think that's only because it's now come to the forefront that it is so important. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of in your own experience how gratitude has helped you sort of move from day to day and kind of living your best life?
Yes, definitely. So I kind of base my sort of living my best life on the 4 pillar plan. So like food,
Mm.
movement,
Yeah.
relaxation, and sleep. And
Yeah.
for me, gratitude is definitely a part of my, well, just everyday life, but also when I'm doing my relaxation techniques, I have a gratitude journal.
Yeah.
And what we focus on, that's what comes into our life. And so
Mm.
I do a really, really simple gratitude practice where I have a diary and I write 3 things down that day, what I'm grateful for, but also why I'm grateful for it. Um,
Yeah.
I tend to focus on more of the smaller things rather than, like we're all grateful for our jobs and that brings in obviously money to pay the bills and our families and loved ones. But I try and
Yeah.
be a bit more specific for it and focus
Mm.
on why. So it may be, for example, somebody might have helped me carry some things to my car, and just even really small things like that. Or I might have been feeling overwhelmed, so I took a walk at lunchtime and I could just see the blue sky and the birds, and I was really grateful for them because they helped me to bring me back into my body and just being more aware. And so it can be really, really small things. And when we focus on those small things, it then creates that ripple effect, and we start to notice more things that we're grateful for, and then that starts to help us lead from a place of love, and that is so important. So it kind of starts changing our mindset and creating these small patterns within our mind. So our mind is a muscle, and
Mm.
when we are focusing on one thing, that's what it's going to be working towards. And when we can try switch that to so from a rather than a place of lack and fear, we can switch it to a place of gratitude and love, we're going to cultivate more of that into our lives. So yeah, gratitude, a huge fan of it.
And as you were saying that, all these sort of light bulbs going off for me because this is exactly what I do as well. So it was really great to hear that other people are doing this as well. So, yeah, for me, it's I have a notebook just before I go to bed. I sort of do that in the evening. Some people do it in the morning as well. They choose to do it in the morning. I normally wake up and have meditation then, and then pick up gratitude in the evening. And for me, it's just five things I'm grateful for. And I encourage people just to try it. Because as you say, what you focus on, you get more of. So in those times where you're feeling a little bit down, or maybe you're sort of feeling a little bit like things are getting on top of you, just focusing on some of the smallest things. And like you say, it hasn't got to be big, meaningful things at that moment. I think there's times when, I can't think of the fifth one, for example, and I'm just like, oh, I'm grateful for the food that I ate today. The comfy bed that I get to lay in every night. Little things like that. So it really can be some of the smallest things. And I think you'll probably agree as well that that has so many benefits.
Yes, definitely. For me as well, it helps to lower stress.
Yeah.
It can be a gradual process, but the more you do it, you might not realize actually it is changing your mindset. But then this
Mm.
is why I love journaling, and it doesn't have to be, paragraphs of writing, but just quick little notes sometimes, because you can then look back
Yeah.
and think, wow, actually my mindset has changed. And we're building more resilience and we're reducing our stress levels, which is going to then help reduce that cortisol that we get in our body, and which can lead to
Yeah.
inflammation. And obviously for me, living with cancer, trying to reduce inflammation within my body is super important. But it's so important for anyone, because stress can have a whole host of mentally, like, symptoms, but also physically, and
Mm.
disease, and um, just friction within ourselves. So trying to reduce stress and through gratitude's a really great way to do that.
And that moves us swiftly on to another point that you just raised. It in those kind of four pillars was rest and sleep.
Oh.
And it's something that a lot of us neglect, especially if we're working, or maybe we're sort of working towards our own business or our own goals. It's one of the things that I think people just kind of leave on the back burner, but it's so important. Would you agree?
Yes, 100% yes. And there's been a lot of new research come out and to say actually when we are lacking sleep, it has huge effects on our health. And one of the leading causes of death is actually, as you probably know, sort of heart disease. And
Yeah.
The effects that lack of sleep can have on our heart health, also other parts of bodies and organs and things, but sleep is really, really important for helping our body to repair. So that's when it's to detox things from our lymphatic system. It helps our organs to repair. And nowadays we have so many different distractions. For example, our laptops, our blue light from our phone, even in the lights on in our home in the evenings as well. So it's really important to create a evening routine. And I do harp on about evening routines quite a lot, which I'm happy to share mine if that would be useful at all, because it's something that I love to do when we're preparing for good sleep. It starts a couple of hours before bed.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think people immediately think about sort of a morning routine, but as you say, sort of an evening routine is equally, if not sometimes more important than kind of how you start the day sometimes. Yeah, I'd love to know. Let us know about how you do that now.
Yeah, so one important thing actually starts, and this is something that I'm working on myself, and I like to share things that I'm working on too, because I don't want things to sound too unrealistic. I want people to know, that it is a process, but it's that we shouldn't be having caffeine after 12 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm a big green tea lover. So I used to have it up right until bed, but now I don't have it after 3 p.m. and I am looking to cut that back to 12 as well.
Okay.
So it's reducing caffeine after midday. So it kind of starts then, but then as you get into the evening, as the sun starts going down, that's when we should be limiting our light exposure. And some really great ways of doing that is to have the lights turned off in our homes, and maybe get some Himalayan salt lamps. They're always really great to have on because they create more of a relaxed environment for your body to start knowing that it's time to start winding down.
Yeah.
It's important, obviously, not to be eating too late as well. And so something that's how I turn off my lights. I like to have my essential oil, lavender going as well, because that helps to relax the body. So I'm doing some really great things to help relax my body and my mind. I come off all electronics an hour before bed. So I normally get into bed at 10 o'clock. So by 9 p.m., I'm off electronics. I'm normally doing my meditation. I will do my gratitude practice. I will be doing some angel card pulls, and I'll be doing some reading as well. And I think that's really important, because a lot of people go, oh, I want to, meditate or journal, but I just don't seem to have the time for it. But an hour before bed is a really great way of doing that, because you really start to relax your body, and then you can get into bed and your body will be rested to have good quality sleep. Because people sleep a lot, but they may not necessarily be getting good quality sleep, and that's really, really important for our health.
Yeah, definitely. I actually got a new watch a little while ago, and it monitors your sleep, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because you keep looking at it and seeing what it did, and you look back on it and it shows you like all the periods and what period of that was deep sleep, and if that was good, it gives you like a rating. It gives you something to work from. But yeah, like you say, it's one of those things we really neglect, I think, isn't it? And there's going to be people listening to this as well as saying, well, I've got children, they go to bed, and then when they go to bed, I need to have some time. Maybe I need to do some housework after that time and that as well. But it isn't, like you said at the beginning, it isn't about doing all these things straight off the bat. It's about looking at one area, incorporating it into a small element of your day, and then sort of building from that. Because otherwise you can get so much overwhelm, I think, from some of this stuff. How did you kind of build some of this stuff up for yourself? Was it kind of a kind of a slow build?
Yeah, it was definitely exactly what you said there. It's about, for me, it was about creating habits, and
Mm,
it can be hard to start something, and often we all like to go in sort of all at once, but that can be very difficult, especially if we're kind of setting ourselves up to fail, and then we think, well, we can't do it, and then we don't want to do it.
yeah.
So yeah, my advice with that would be is to make small changes. And like I said, I still do that now. And you let those small changes start to become a habit, and they do, and they just start to embed naturally into your daily life. And it doesn't seem too overwhelming that way, because like you said as well, it can be, we have so much information out there nowadays, and it can be
Mm,
overwhelming to see what to do and where to start. Um, and that's something that I do with meditation as well. I started doing 3 minutes a day for a month, and then I built it up to 5 minutes a day for a month, and then again going up to 10, and then I went to 2 10-minute sessions every day for a month, and built it up that way. So it's a slow, gradual process, and I think that's really important, not to become overwhelmed. Start off slowly with small things, and just build upon those foundations.
yeah, and I think, in the time we live in as well, things like meditation, it's so easy to get into it. There's an abundance of apps that kind of guide you through some of these things as well, and they're not always paid. There's free ones as well. I use Insight Timer sometimes as well, which is a really great free meditation app. And if you haven't come across that, I'll link that up in the notes, in the show notes. But that, I think that's the thing, and also, if you're listening to this and maybe all these things that we're talking about, and maybe the first time, or maybe you've heard about them in the past and a bit sort of wary about it, do they sound a bit woo woo and all that kind of stuff? All I would say is just give them a try. Especially my hunch is, like, for example, with something like meditation, if you just give a little bit of your time and just build that muscle up, because it is a muscle, you would go to the gym for other means. Once you start seeing those benefits, and especially for something like meditation, it's such an abundance of benefits. It's yeah, it really is life changing. But just keep really small steps as you go. Another one of these pillars that you mentioned before, there's two more I want to sort of touch upon. One being kind of what we put into our bodies, the nutritional element of what we put into our bodies. I know that's something that you love to speak about on your blog as well, Kayleigh.
I do, yes. And I think it's quite important to mention that I am vegan.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
some people automatically think, no, there's like a barrier goes up when I say I'm vegan to some people. But just so people could be aware, so they know kind of where I'm coming from, because I think it's
Mm,
really important to eat intuitively for your body. And I think there's a lot of fear that if you do go maybe plant-based, that you don't get enough B12 or vitamin D3. But for me, actually, I used to have a deficiency, and then when I went plant-based, um,
mm,
I no longer have those deficiencies, because I understood what I was putting into my body, and
yeah.
I was eating intuitively for me. And I think that's something that you have to you have to make those decisions for yourself, to know actually what does my body need today. But to be able to get
Mm,
to the point of doing that, you need to start fueling your body with whole food. So it's food that like we can use as medicine, so it doesn't have ingredients in it, but they are ingredients themselves. So real whole foods that aren't processed. And don't get me wrong, I do love to go out for dinner, and maybe the food isn't as always as um unrefined or processed as I would like, but I don't have any guilt around that either, because it's an exception rather than the rule. So it's that kind of that 80-20 balance there. But majority of the time I'm eating whole foods that are unrefined and processed, and they don't have any sort of refined sugar in them either.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? You spoke about veganism at the beginning, and I think that's just something that a lot of people just don't understand or know about, until they've kind of experienced it themselves. It's again something that we don't necessarily have a lot of information on currently, and that's growing, as you say. And this is all these conversations. I say this to pretty much every guest on the show, is that I wish that this was the stuff that was taught in schools. It's all these different elements, because we can learn about all these different things that went on in the past, and all these key events in the past, which we might not use for the rest of our lives. But this is the stuff that we will use day to day. And, it's just so important when I speak with people about these sort of things. And it's something like nutrition as well. A lot of that comes from food we were given as kids and that kind of thing. It's kind of a learned process, isn't it? And, you must see that when you kind of go out and speak to people, that some of these things are quite ingrained sometimes and difficult to kind of pull off.
Definitely. And yeah, and it's hard sometimes to change mindsets, because there are so many adverts out there, or we might see on food labels, packaging saying fat free, which normally means much more full of sugar, and there's some really great fats out there that are really healthy for us, sort of like avocados, nuts and seeds, and we need that within our body, but we become so scared and afraid of this term fat. And it really is taking it back to the basics and thinking, okay, these fresh ingredients, they're whole food, and if I'm cooking these and eating I would say more 7 a day rather than 5 a day, but you're getting your 7 a day in, you're eating fresh fruits and vegetables, and you're even cooking with spices is a great way to add really great flavor to your food. And spices have so many health benefits in themselves, especially when reducing inflammation within the body. And so taking it back to basics, trying to avoid foods that come from packets, but actually, eating fresh produce. Even great if you can go to your local greengrocers. I know not everyone can do that, because they're few and far between now as well, which is quite sad to see. But just trying to keep it simple. There's so many different diets now out there, and when I think about diet, I call it eating real whole foods and what's good for your own body.
Yeah, definitely. And as a byproduct of that is also, we haven't spoken yet about kind of movement as well, moving in the way that our body was supposed to move, how we were created. I know that's something that you're passionate about as well, Kayleigh.
Yes, I am. So I love exercise, but not everybody does, which I completely get. But that is because of the term exercise is used, and it can really freak people out. So I tend to use the word that you just used yourself, movement, because this just creates a mindset shift in the in the mind. It helps it to become, rather than a barrier going up, it brings it down, and you start realizing that movement and physical activity can be in many, many different ways. We have so many great classes now that you can go try new things out. It might be that you love walking and going on hikes, and that's really great because you're out in the fresh air, you're in nature, which is so healing and important within itself. And it might be that you want to try trampoline, and I took my niece to the trampoline park, and I woke up the next day and I was like, oh my gosh, like I am in pain. Like I used muscles that I didn't realize I had. But I had so much fun at the same time. And we have these rock climbing centers now, cycling. There's there's so many great ways that you can move your body. And
Mm.
we're quite sedentary now, and it's about being more fluid with your movements. Like I like training with weights as well, but I try and mix it
Yeah.
up, and rather than just one muscle group, I'll be working all over. So I'm really moving my body rather than standing still and just moving a weight, because I think
Yeah.
it's so important to be, getting that movement in, that fluidity within the body and moving that energy around.
And definitely. And when we talk about movement, for the listeners as well, it hasn't got to be something that they're going straight to a gym or straight to a class. It could be just be getting up a little bit early in the morning, going for a walk. If you've got a dog, that's a ideal opportunity to go for a nice walk. And just, for me, when I used to do walking in the morning as well, it was just a great way to kind of get fresh air through your lungs, be up at a time when no one else is about. And there's something quite magical about being up at that time of day as well, when no one's around, and kind of doing like that. How did you kind of work it? Was movement and exercise something that you'd always done, or did you have to kind of take small steps to kind of get you in that position?
It has been something that I had always done. I'm
Mm.
quite lucky. My mum was always quite active. She loves running. Um,
Cool.
I can't run, unfortunately, because of my leg.
Yeah.
It's too much impact on there for it. Um,
Mm.
but I do move in different ways, and yeah, so it has been something that has been quite natural for me. So I completely
Mm.
understand that people do find it hard and quite overwhelming, or even scary to start exercising or doing different
Mm.
movements. And that's something that needs to be understood. Otherwise, we're not going to help inspire people to want to move their bodies. And
Mm.
one thing that I have noticed is that with a lot of gym classes and workouts, we think that we have to do an hour. And I heard something to say, where has this hour come from? We have, I'm going to go to the gym for an hour, or I'm going to do an exercise
Mm.
class for an hour. We feel like that if we don't do an hour's workout, that we haven't had a good enough workout. But actually, if you're just moving your body, it could be half an hour, it can be even 10 minutes. You could get a better workout in 10 minutes than you might, do in an hour. And
Yeah.
sometimes an hour can be far too long to fit into people's daily routines. And people then won't move their bodies, but rather than thinking, actually, I'm just going to move my body for 10 minutes, and they do that every day, that will be so much better and so much more beneficial for your body than going and doing some movement just for once a week for an hour. So if you need to, I definitely would say to break that movement down into smaller chunks and do it daily.
Absolutely. I'm actually going through that journey myself at the moment as someone that hasn't always come easily to exercise. And again, it's interesting what you said about your mum used to do exercise, and then that was kind of in some way kind of reflected on you. That wasn't a trend that was in my family, so it's always been something that's been quite difficult. So I'm currently feeling the pain of going through that as well. But I can always already see the benefits, thinking clearer, freer movement in the body, all these different things. And I'm looking forward to now this journey of sort of changing that, and looking forward to what that would mean for me later on. It's such an important thing. And it was really the sort of final part of my sort of life, as it were, that wasn't quite in the right place. So I'm with you if you listen to this and you're struggling. I'm certainly going through that myself at the moment. So we've spoken about community, we've spoken about gratitude, we've spoken about rest, we've spoken about movement and nutrition as well. And this kind of forms this kind of foundation for what we believe is kind of living the best life that you can do. In your experience and from enhancing all these areas of your life, what have you found to be the core benefits as a whole of this journey?
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to try keep this one, not so. So please do interrupt me if you need to, because
No, you're fine.
I love speaking about the benefits, because there are so many, and you've
Mm.
mentioned it yourself, about thinking clearer. And I want to look at our mental health and our physical health holistically. So as I go through this, when I'm talking about health, I'm talking about both of them together, because we really need to
Yeah.
start thinking of them as one rather than two separate entities.
Yeah.
Mental health something. So I'm a mental health first aid instructor. So I train people
Yeah.
to become mental health first aid trainers, and I also deliver a mental health awareness course. So I love to bring it all together. But it helps in all areas of our lives. So we can think more clearly, such as you said, and we thrive more as well. And when we're thinking clearly, we're able to feel more organized, we're less overwhelmed, we're less stressed. And so our daily lives become easier and more manageable. So it's again reducing that stress, reducing that inflammation within the body as well. And even having that mental clarity there, it helps us to eat better as well, because we feel like we do have more time and we're not in a rush. So we're not just going to rush to the to a fast food chain and get some convenient food. So that's a huge benefit in itself, because it's going to help us to feel like we can eat more healthy and nutrition food. And it's going to help our work, because our productivity will go up as well. So yeah, all areas of our life. So that's what I've really found. I found that my mental clarity, my energy levels, that's all become much better. And living with a chronic condition, energy levels is something that people can really struggle with. Like, I understand I have days where I'm on the sofa and I can't really do much, but those days are few and far between now, because I've kind of gone on this journey and wanting to fuel my body with healthiest food and fuel my mind with good sort of meditation and even things on Instagram as well. So I think, yeah, it definitely helps in all areas, and it just helps you feel more at one with your body, and you're not feeling so overwhelmed and disorganized. So it definitely brings a sense of calm and clarity.
No, definitely. Everything you're saying there is really resonating with previous conversations we've had on the show, and it seems to be a general consensus that again, what we focus on in our lives, we get more of. We focus on the more positive aspects of all these areas. The more abundance just generally, comes to us, and it's just a amazing thing, really. There's going to be people listen to this who think, well, that's all well and good, but, and then they'll have different reasons why maybe they can't progress in these areas. Maybe it's a nutrition, maybe they feel it's too expensive, maybe it's movement, maybe they don't have the time. Is this something that obviously you're delivering mental health awareness courses and that kind of thing as well? I'm guessing these are kind of things that come up when you're kind of teaching. Is it something that kind of comes up quite regularly?
Yes, and yeah, and I would. I think it's really important that there's no judgment there, because
No.
it is a mindset, and we've been conditioned, and the information that we're consuming that's out there is it doesn't help. We have, and don't get me wrong, I love the healthcare system in the world. Modern day medicine is needed, especially if there's a trauma or an emergency. It's great, but I think we definitely need a combination of both, natural healing and that. But we've come from, we're consuming all this information, and it's quite hard to change our mindsets and to create a new pattern. So yeah, it definitely is something that I've come across a lot. And when I'm working with different individuals, I again, I come back to, just small changes, drop small nuggets of wisdom, that rather than coming from a place where you're telling someone you should do this, I always say you shouldn't should all over people. I just use should there, but yeah, you're doing it with love, and you kind of lead the way, and people then naturally start to gravitate towards you, and they want to know what you're doing, because people do want to feel better. um and a huge part of it to me is self-love, and people of course want that. So it's just about being the change yourself, and other people kind of gravitate towards you, and they can, might start asking you questions, and that's when you can really help them, is when they're willing and they're wanting that change. Otherwise, there are barriers that do get put up, and it's just a reflection of people not being quite ready to hear what you have to say. So I feel like it's just kind of leading with love, and they kind of then will start to follow, and then that's when they make those changes within their lives as well.
Yeah, exactly. Just, lead with the best example that you can give. And then, as and when it's the right time for their journey to pick these things up, they'll, they'll come across it in their own way. Um, Research has been something that's been a huge benefit to you in your kind of journey over the past few years. And it's been something you've kind of been able to delve into and kind of research yourself. Have you had any kind of mentors or people that have helped you along the way?
Yes, definitely. I feel like I could not have gone on this journey without them. So I
Mm.
have people around me who inspire me daily, and but a really, really big tool, which I do want to give a shout out to social media, because
Mm.
I know it can get
Yeah.
a bad rep for good reasons why. Well. Um, but to me, I've used it as a tool to help inspire me. So when it first started, and I had first got my Instagram account, I was following a lot of Fitspo models,
Mm.
because I felt like, that was the thing that you do, and I realized
Mm.
it was just not making me feel good. Um, so I unfollowed them, and now I follow people who inspire me, who I can learn things from as well, and I can um, I can learn daily from, and
Mm.
bed things into my life, and practices and rituals that they do. So I've had I've worked with some lifestyle coaches as well. I've
Yeah.
been on some women empowerment courses, but there's some amazing free courses out there. So every time I see a free course and it resonates with me, I'm like, yeah, cool, I'm taking advantage of that, and I'm doing
Yeah.
it, because then you're building this online community that's there, that can help support you, that can help keep you accountable as well. We automatically think when it comes to coaches that we have to spend a lot of money on them, but actually maybe listening to podcasts like this podcast, great podcast,
Mm.
amazing tips from, and lifestyle choices, and information and guests that you've had on this show. So listening to podcasts is one great tool to really
Mm.
help develop your knowledge, and that's what I do. So I listen to a podcast every morning on my commute to work. Like, I hate driving. It's just something I just like doing, getting
Mhm.
stuck in traffic. um,
Yeah.
but I listen to a podcast and it completely changes my mindset, because
Mm.
I'm learning. So rather than it being sort of wasted time, I'm actually learning new things from, top leaders and health coaches or
Mm.
mindset practitioners from around the world, and it just helps you to you're not going to do everything that they do, but there's some small nuggets of wisdom in there that can be easily embedded into your life, and you're not having to spend a lot of money on going out and getting a coach, which is
Mm.
amazing.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And what I tell people is just kind of be a sponge. There's so much information out there. We're so lucky, and I feel so grateful to have the information we have out online, that we have access to. And everything back 25 years or something like that, someone growing up then, they didn't have half of this information. And equally, like you said, with the inspo models and that kind of stuff, there is stuff that maybe is not always best for us. But I think with some of this stuff, you get a gut feeling after a while, and you get a gut feeling as to who you want to listen to and work with. And as you say, podcasts are a fantastic way of kind of getting into some of this stuff. It's free. You can do other stuff, like you said, driving and other bits and pieces while you're doing it. So you're able to do two things at once, which is always great to save you some time and that kind of stuff. And also books. I just want to mention books as well. I think Books was something that was kind of forgotten for a little while in the last few years, but are now sort of making much more of a comeback. I really think that a book is the best kind of £10 you could spend on education. It's some of the insights and learnings that we can get from books. It's just so amazing right now. So it hasn't got to be investing a lot of money in a coach or something like that. A book something that you delve into, or do you prefer kind of podcasts and audio?
I love books, so I've always loved reading. And coming back actually to my learning difficulties, that's why it took a little while for my mum to be able to get me diagnosed with one of them, which is dyslexia, because I was such, I was reading at a higher level and understanding it. But so yeah, books have always been a big part. I enjoy reading, and there's so many self-development books out there which are amazing. You get to highlight the pages and you get to make notes, and yeah, so books are very, very useful. I also like to read for not just for learning. So sometimes I'm going to put a self-development book down, because sometimes it can get overwhelming with all this information. So I would say to somebody who's feeling like that, you don't have to apply everything into your life at once, and not everything that people speak about is going to resonate with you, but there might be something that you think, yes, that is what I can do, that's going to make a difference. And like you said, you start getting that gut feeling for when you get more intuitive in your body, you know what might feel more right for you. But one of the books that I've read, which is absolutely fantastic, was by Melissa Ambrosini, Mastering Your Mean Girl, and she's just recently wrote a second one as well. And I've also just finished, which you may have read, Notes on Another's Planet by Matt Haig. And
I haven't. I've got that saved on my Amazon sort of got to buy list, but I haven't yet got it. That's a small book, right? It's not too big.
No, it's so small, and the chapters are very small in itself as well. So you could read, and perfect to put into your bedtime routine. So you could read maybe just one or two chapters. It's not overwhelming. So for anyone listening who's not read that book yet, it is so good. I can't really describe it. It's just so funny, but it's so real, and just goes through real things that we feel on day-to-day life. So I think everybody would relate to that. So it's not really a self-help book as such, it's just you relate to it, but there are some really great nuggets in there which you think, I can do that. And it's not intimidating. It is a great book.
Perfect. Great recommendation. Now I have to go and get that tomorrow. From going through anything like this, big changes, lifestyle changes, I'm guessing sometimes the people that we live with sometimes maybe have not objections, but they might find it difficult you adapting to new routines. Again, this may be something that comes up when you run courses for people that are looking for help with certain challenges, and that they all have good intentions of wanting to make those first steps. Maybe at home or sort of their social circles, they're not always overly supportive. Is that something that you find, and more importantly, did you find that yourself? When you were sort of learning all these new sort of aspects of your life.
I haven't. I didn't find much of it. That I must admit that there has been some resistance there. But so maybe I can't speak too much on that. So although there's resistance, I've always had quite found people to be quite supportive, which is good. But I can definitely see that some people would have maybe more objections from other people. However, I would just say to be very open, be very to say why you want to. And again, don't try and force them to make that change with you. You do it, you're doing it yourself as well. And just always coming from a really, really loving place. So if somebody might be finding it quite difficult, it might be because, it's bringing up something within themselves as well, which they're not quite ready to do.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just always leading with love, and to know that you have the permission to change. We're learning things every day. We go through different life experience every day. we're going to change, and that's allowed. And I think sometimes people are waiting for permission. So if you're waiting for permission, I'm telling you, you've lost it. So you're allowed to change and learn and evolve.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know, often we kind of wait for the perfect time when we've got the, you know, the perfect job, we've got the, you know, the perfect amount of money coming in, the perfect time. And what you find is that, you know, the years just roll by, and sometimes you can be in the same position and you wish you'd have done something about it. You know, which covers all aspects of our life. And I think, you know, going back to what we were saying about family members and maybe in those circumstances where they're not supportive, it's really, like you say, just with love, in the fact that the person that they know and love is changing somewhat, so they feel a little bit kind of, well, what do we do, how do I be around them, that kind of thing. And it all just comes down to communication, as you said, Kayleigh. If you have that conversation about why it's important to you, you know, and what the benefits will be for you going forward, you know, if they love you, they'll understand. And I think sometimes where there is a bit of friction is that they don't really sort of understand what's going on. Maybe you haven't talked to them about it. So yeah, like any sort of relationship matter, just improve that in communication and just kind of break it down for them. It just kind of helps, I think. So we've started all these new things. We've taken it very step by step. We're introducing small changes. It's hard sometimes, isn't it, to kind of keep yourself on track. Maybe if it's something that we haven't, maybe it's something we've never done before. Maybe we've changed our whole nutrition. Maybe we've started to choose a different diet or choose a different approach to what we eat. And it can be challenging to keep on that journey sometimes. What advice would you kind of give to people that maybe have started and maybe have started to feel that they're waning a bit? And this could be anything, not just nutrition. Maybe they're on that journey and they're just finding that sometimes they haven't got as much strength as they have done at other times. What would you kind of recommend that they sort of consider or kind of think about?
Mm. Okay, so this is a great question, and I love this because, you know, we've spoken about all these changes, and we're humans, you know, sometimes we might fall off track, and that's okay. So it's important to know that. So yeah, this is a great question. Um, so things that I've done personally is, again, I'm going to come back to journaling, but there's something called a bullet journal, which is literally just
Mm.
pages with dots on it, and you can write down the changes that you're trying to do, and you then color in one of the dots, and then if you do it a second day, you color in the dot again, and you link, or you can just draw a line through the dots of how many days that you've done. So it doesn't take much time. It's really quick and effective. You can go, yep, I've eaten my 5 or 7 portions of vegetables and fruit. So you're really keeping a track on it, and you can see what days maybe you haven't, done everything that you've needed to do. But
Yeah.
it's just having a bit of a structure around it, and structure is really, really important. So maybe you do have a morning routine where you do your meditation, or you prefer to do it in the evening. Like I love doing it in both, but
Yeah.
people don't, and that's absolutely fine. You do what works best for you, but having a routine will really help, again, for your mind to start realizing that this is actually a part of your daily routine. Now it become habit, and it's just something that you naturally flow towards.
Mm.
But again, using social media, follow inspirational people who do inspire you and who are teaching you things, because the more you surround yourself with people who want that same lifestyle as you, or are working on those things within themselves too, you're going to feel more inspired. It's kind of there keeping you accountable, and you might want to find like an accountability buddy as well,
Mm.
someone just to help, you helping keep each other on track. So there are some really great simple tools that you can do. um, but I think as well, when it comes to movement, coming back to, make sure that you're enjoying it. Don't let it ever become stale and boring and something you have to drag yourself to do. If you don't want to go to the gym, or if you don't want to go outside and do that walk, but actually you can
Mm.
put on a yoga app and do 10 minutes yoga, that's fine as well. But
Mm.
as long as you've got that routine, and I know it's not always that routine's going to go to plan. So on days that it doesn't, don't beat yourself up about it. It's life, other things happen, and that's okay too. And it's not feeling guilty around it, because that guilt will make you feel worse, and then you might then think, well, there's just no point. But actually, just if you have a bad day, have a bad day. Just you have a bad hour, you have a bad hour. You make the next day or the next hour better. Do something which that does change your state or your mindset. So it might just be as simply as doing 1 minute of deep belly breathing to calm yourself down. But have something that keeps you accountable, maybe a journal, or a bullet journal, which is really easy. You might have an app, where I think there's apps now which you can have like daily habits, and you can put your
Yeah.
habits in there that you want to do, and you can tick them off. So you're keeping yourself on track, and you look back and you think, actually, yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
I say this every episode, but I really do think we could talk about this forever. This is, there's so many facets to all these things, and they're all so important. The purpose of the podcast is called Make Today Count, and the reason for that being is that after a listener has listened to one of the shows, I'd love them to be able to make one small change the following day on the topic that we've discussed. And we've spoken about a lot of things this evening, all of which we could make some small changes. But I'm going to put you on the spot now, Kayleigh. So if you could choose just one thing that someone could, maybe if they felt that maybe in all these areas that I thought about, just a little bit out of tune, needs a little bit sort of love and care, what one kind of small step would you encourage them to take tomorrow?
Okay. So, there's two that I feel like I just can't choose between, but they're both.
Okay, I'll give you two.
Thank you. They're both very, very simple ones as well, and that's gratitude. So have a gratitude practice, because that's going to completely change your mindset. It might be a slow, gradual process, but I can promise you, after a few months, your mindset's going to be change, and that's going to really help all areas of your life. And also getting good quality sleep, so start to prioritize sleep. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to sleep more or longer, but just have a good nighttime routine and a good morning routine, which really sets you up for the day, and obviously helps you to close down at night to have that good quality sleep. That's so important for our health, for our physical health and our mental health. So yeah, I'll choose a gratitude practice and getting good quality sleep.
Perfect. Good choices. And two as well. So double bonus for this episode. With all the stuff you've got going on, through the training that you give, through being a mental health first aider, through the stuff all the great stuff that you're doing with the blog as well. You've got so much going on. Anything in particular that you've got coming up that you want to mention, or anything in particular as far as the blog that you're working on, or articles that are going to be coming out soon?
Yes. So actually, I am going to say it, because this is going to keep me accountable, because I'm saying it on the podcast. So
I love this. Perfect.
I have been writing a book for years. I started it in my first year of university, and as you can imagine, not a great time to start writing a book. It's it's a story. It's very lighthearted, but it's about sharing kind of this positive movement. And yeah, I've kind of let life get in the way a little bit, but I'm coming towards the end of getting it kind of small changes made, and then it goes through the editing stage, which I'm going to do myself. But that is one thing that I'm working on, and I am going to get it finished this year. So I'm holding myself accountable now, and I'm putting that out there, and I'm saying, if you finish this year, I'm ready for next year to maybe send it to publishers or self-publish. I haven't decided yet. But
and is this a fictional piece of work, or is it kind of a personal thing?
No fiction. So it's it has some life events in there, which kind of relates to sort of like my spiritual practices, my healthy lifestyle, because I wanted it to be a book that would inspire people, that people could read, enjoy the story of it, but actually feel inspired to put some of these changes into their own life as well. But it's through more of a gradual process, rather than actually this is a self-development book, this is what you can do. So yes, it's hopefully it'll be a nice story and people will like to read it. And I'm also working on short Instagram videos, so just covering topics such as today, really short bursts, just to help inspire people, and just to serve as a gentle reminder if people have gone, oh yeah, I haven't actually done that for a while, to embed healthier practices into their daily routine. So yeah, they're two things that I'm working on at the moment.
Perfect. Sounds exciting about the book and everything. It's exciting times for you.
Definitely.
And where's the best place if people want to connect, come and say hi? Would that be through the blog itself or via Instagram, or where's the best place to?
So my blog's a continuous thing, so please do go check it out at livinghealthybeatingcancer.com. And it's really, or .co.uk, I should really know that. It's not just about myself living with cancer, it's lots of different other healthy living advice on there, but majority of the time is the Instagram is the best place for me to connect with myself. That's where I share kind of my lifestyle and what I do. So yeah, come find me on Instagram. I'd love a conversation. I love to help people. So
perfect. Well, if you listen to this and you want to reach out, please get in touch with Kayleigh via those the website, and all the links will be in the show notes on the podcast as well. We've spoken about gratitude this evening, and I just wanted to express my gratitude to you, Kayleigh, and just acknowledge you. It's been great, kind of sort of learning a little bit more about your journey this evening, but also from seeing your social media posts, from reading your articles on the blog. It's just so inspirational, kind of the journey that you've been on and the way in which you're helping people now. I'm sure I can see from comments and other things that are being left for you that you're helping so many people, from the experiences that you've had. So I just wanted to acknowledge you for that and say thank you. And if you like what you heard on the podcast today, please leave us a comment, either on the website or via all the social media feeds that we'll say this on, or wherever you find your podcasts. Also, we'd really love if you could leave us a review over on Apple iTunes, if that's where you leave your reviews for the podcast. And until next time, I've been Ross Dean, and I'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.